The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor hummed with a frequency that made Maya's teeth ache. She could taste copper, not from blood, though there had been plenty of that 3 hours ago, but from the IV needle taped to the back of her hand, the metallic tang seeping into her awareness like a warning she couldn't decode. The vinyl chair beneath her squeaked every time she shifted, and she'd stopped trying to find a comfortable position. Comfort wasn't meant for places like this, where the air itself felt recycled through 1,000 tragedies. Her brother's hand was warm on her shoulder. Too warm. Everything felt too something. Too bright, too loud, too real in a way that made her skin crawl. "The detective wants to talk to you again," Marcus said softly. Maya closed her eyes. Behind her eyelids, she could still see it. The apartment door splintering inward, the look on Blake Morrison's face when he realized she wasn't alone, that Marcus had come home early. The textbook that had been in her hands, Fundamentals of Criminal Justice, ironic enough to make her sick, sailing through the air as she'd tried to shield herself. The sound of her wrist breaking had been quieter than she'd expected, almost polite, like a branch snapping under new snow. "Maya." Marcus squeezed her shoulder. "You don't have to do this right now." But she did. She knew she did, because in 6 hours, Blake's girlfriend would arrive. Savannah Chen, with her perfect ballet bun and her family's perfect reputation and her perfectly practiced expression of concern that never quite reached her eyes. Savannah, who had smiled at Maya in comparative politics last semester, who had borrowed her notes twice, who had said with such casual certainty, "Blake would never. You must have misunderstood." The detective, Reeves, his badge had said, approached with 2 cups of coffee. He had the kind of face that had seen too much and still bothered to care, which made everything worse somehow. Maya wanted him to be callous, wanted a reason to hate this process beyond the obvious. "Miss Torres," he set 1 cup beside her, steam curling upward like a question mark. "I know this is difficult." Difficult. The word sat between them, inadequate and flimsy. "Blake Morrison has a record," Reeves continued, settling into the chair across from her. The coffee in his cup rippled as he moved. "Nothing that stuck. 3 prior complaints, all withdrawn. 2 from other students. 1 from a woman he dated in high school." Maya's good hand clenched. "They all dropped the charges?" "Yes." "Why?" Reeves took a long breath, and in it Maya heard the answer. Pressure, influence. The Morrison family had money, the kind that built hospital wings and endowed professorships, the kind that made problems disappear. "I can't promise you this will be easy," Reeves said, "but I can promise we'll do this right, if you're willing to see it through." The taste of copper intensified. Maya thought about her scholarship, about the internship she'd just landed with the district attorney's office, about the carefully constructed future she'd been building brick by brick. She thought about Savannah's face, about the text messages that would come, about the way people would look at her in the halls. "I'll testify," she said. Marcus exhaled beside her. Reeves nodded slowly, something like respect flickering in his tired eyes. "Good. I'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. Bring someone with you. Family, a friend, a lawyer if you want one." Tomorrow came with the weight of prophecy. Savannah arrived exactly when Maya had known she would, at 6:47 a.m., as the sun was turning the hospital windows into sheets of gold. She'd brought flowers, white roses, because of course she had. White for innocence, white for purity, white for the stainless version of Blake that existed only in her mind. Maya. Savannah's voice was soft, musical even. She'd done theater in high school, had that trained quality to her speech. "I heard what happened." "Oh, I'm so sorry." Maya studied her from the doorway of the hospital room where she'd been moved for observation. Savannah was 22, same as Maya, but she carried herself like someone playing at adulthood. Like if she wore the right clothes and said the right things, no one would notice she was still a girl who believed in fairy tales. "Sorry it happened," or "sorry I got hurt?" Maya asked. The flowers trembled slightly in Savannah's hands. "Both." Blake told me there was a misunderstanding, that you 2 were studying and things got confused." My wrist broke from confusion. Maya held up her casted arm. "He said you fell, that your brother came in and assumed—" "He shoved me into my desk." Maya's voice came out flat, mechanical. "After I told him to leave." After he put his hands on me." Savannah set the flowers on the side table with the careful precision of someone defusing a bomb. "Blake wouldn't do that. I know him. We've been together for 3 years." 3 years and you never noticed? Maya gestured at the bruises on her neck, still vivid against her brown skin. Never wondered about the other girls? Something flickered behind Savannah's eyes. There and gone, like a fish darting beneath murky water. Knowledge, maybe, or the stubborn refusal of it. Those girls were lying, Savannah said, but her voice had lost its music. Blake's family has money, people see an opportunity. I don't want his money, I want him arrested. The air in the room changed, contracted. Savannah's perfectly composed face began to crack at the edges. Maya, please, think about what you're doing. Blake has a future. He's supposed to start at Morrison and Hale in the fall, his father's firm. If you press charges, if this goes public, he'll face consequences for assaulting me. You'll destroy his life over a misunderstanding. Maya laughed, a harsh sound that hurt her bruised ribs. He destroyed mine over an erection. Savannah flinched. That's crude. Rape tends to be. Don't call it that. Savannah's voice pitched higher, desperate now. Don't use that word. Blake made a mistake. He misread signals. I said no. Multiple times. There's no misreading that. Savannah moved closer, and Maya could smell her perfume. Something floral and expensive that probably cost more than Maya's textbooks. Please, she said, and now the tears came, perfect and crystalline. I'm begging you, drop the charges. Blake's family is willing to cover your medical bills, your therapy, whatever you need. They'll make sure you're taken care of. But if you go through with this, if you testify, She paused, swallowed. My father knows people. At the university. At the DA's office where you're supposed to intern. There it was. The threat wrapped in concern, the blade hidden in the bouquet. Are you seriously threatening my career to protect your rapist boyfriend? He's not. Savannah's voice broke. He's not a rapist. He's not. We're engaged, Maya. I'm going to marry him. We're supposed to have a life together. Please don't take that away from me. Maya stared at her, at this woman who would set herself on fire to keep a monster warm. Get out. Maya, get out. Savannah left the flowers. Maya threw them in the trash as soon as the door closed. The detective's office smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Maya sat across from Reeves 3 days later, her statement typed and waiting for her signature. Marcus sat beside her, his presence a solid wall at her back. You should know, Reeves said, that the Morrisons have retained Gerald Vance. Marcus swore softly. Who's that? Maya asked. Criminal defense attorney, high profile. He specializes in making cases disappear. Reeves tapped his pen against the desk, a nervous rhythm. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. This won't be easy. Nothing about this has been easy. Fair point. Reeves slid the statement across the desk. Once you sign this, it's official. The DA will move forward with charges. Are you ready? Maya picked up the pen. The cast on her wrist made her grip awkward, childish. She thought about the other girls, the ones who'd withdrawn their complaints. She wondered if they'd sat in rooms like this, felt the same weight pressing down on their shoulders. She signed. The messages started that night. Unknown number. You're making a mistake. Unknown number. Blake has friends. You should think about that. Unknown number. Lying bitch. Hope you're ready for everyone to know what you really are. Marcus wanted to call the police. Maya deleted them instead, one after another, watching the words disappear as if that could make them less real. At 2 a.m., a brick came through her apartment window. At 3 a.m., someone spray-painted liar across her door. At 4 a.m., Maya stopped sleeping. Professor Hastings called her into his office on a Tuesday. He was the head of the Criminal Justice Department, the one who'd written her recommendation for the DA internship. His office was lined with books, their spines cracked from use, and normally Maya found the space comforting. Not today. Miss Torres. He didn't invite her to sit. I've heard about the situation with Blake Morrison. The assault, you mean? The alleged assault. He said it gently, like the qualifier made it better. I want you to know that the university supports you completely. We have resources available, counseling, academic accommodations if you need them. Thank you. However, the word hung between them like an axe. I also want you to be aware of the complexities involved. The Morrison family has been generous to this institution. Blake's grandfather endowed 3 chairs in the law school. His father funds our mock trial program. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. Is this where you tell me to drop the charges? I would never presume to tell you what to do in a personal matter. Professor Hastings folded his hands on his desk. I'm simply making you aware of the potential ramifications. The university community is small. People talk. And your internship with the DA's office, I understand that's very important to your career plans. It is. District Attorney Marsh is up for re-election this year. He's been vocal about his relationship with the Morrison family, supporting their various civic initiatives. Hastings paused, let the implications settle. I'm told that if this case moves forward, the optics could be complicated for him. And complicated for anyone associated with the case. Maya's hands started to shake. She pressed them flat against her thighs. You're saying I'll lose my internship. I'm saying that difficult cases sometimes have difficult consequences. He finally gestured to a chair. Maya didn't sit. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but you're a bright young woman with a promising future. Is it worth risking everything over an incident that, by all accounts, was an unfortunate misunderstanding between two people who'd been drinking? I wasn't drinking. Blake says you were. Blake's a liar. Professor Hastings sighed, the sound heavy with practiced disappointment. This is exactly the kind of he said, she said situation that destroys careers, Maya, his and yours. Sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is walk away. Heel. Knee, move forward. Maya stood. Her legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. Is that what you told the other girls? Hastings' expression flickered. What other girls? The ones who came before me, the ones who dropped their complaints. Maya moved toward the door. Did you tell them it was courageous to let him get away with it? Miss Torres? But she was already gone, the door closing behind her with a sound like a coffin lid. The DA's office called the next morning. They regretted to inform her that the internship position had been filled by another candidate. The timing was unfortunate. They wished her the best in her future endeavors. Maya listened to the voicemail 3 times before she threw her phone across the room. Savannah came back a week later, without flowers this time. She looked thinner, the shadows carved beneath her eyes like something had been hollowing her out from the inside. He's not eating, she said without preamble. Maya had opened the door of her apartment, the new apartment because she couldn't stay in the old one after the brick, after the graffiti. And there Savannah stood, wraith-like in the hallway. Blake, he's not sleeping. He keeps having these episodes. Panic attacks, his therapist says. He's talking about hurting himself, Maya, because of what you're doing to him. Maya leaned against the doorframe. So now it's my fault if he self-harms? Isn't it? Savannah's eyes were red-rimmed, desperate. You're destroying him. The university suspended him pending the investigation. His father won't speak to him. His mother cries every time she looks at him. Well, all because you won't just let this go. He assaulted me. He made a mistake. Savannah's voice cracked. One mistake, and you want to ruin his entire life for it? He broke my wrist. Maya stopped. Because the other things, the things that had happened before Marcus came home, were too heavy to speak aloud to this woman who would only weaponize them. You know what he did. You know, and you don't care. I care about Blake. Savannah wrapped her arms around herself. I love him. And love means forgiveness, Maya. It means understanding that people fuck up sometimes. It means not destroying them when they need help. He needs prison. He needs therapy, treatment, a chance to make amends. Savannah took a step closer. My father spoke to the university president. If you drop the charges, they'll reinstate your internship. Professor Hastings will write you a new recommendation. You can have your future back. In exchange for giving Blake his. In exchange for doing the right thing. Maya laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Get out of my apartment, Savannah. Please. The word came out small, shattered. I'm begging you. Blake is all I have. My parents are divorcing. Did you know that? My mother's having an affair with her tennis instructor, and my father's threatening to cut me off if I don't come home and talk sense into her. Blake is the only good thing in my life. The only person who makes me feel like I matter. And you're taking him away from me. For a moment, just a flash, Maya felt something like pity. Then she remembered the taste of copper, the sound of her wrist breaking, the weight of Blake's body pinning her down. Oh, you matter, Maya said quietly, but not enough to let him hurt someone else. Savannah's face hardened. You're going to regret this. Probably. I mean it. My family doesn't lose, Maya. We don't let people destroy what's ours. She turned to leave, then paused. The preliminary hearing is next week. A lot can happen in a week. The threat was clear. Maya closed the door and locked it, then checked the window locks, then checked the door again. She would check them 6 more times before she managed to sleep. The pictures appeared on Tuesday. Maya Torres, caught mid-laugh at a party 2 years ago, red cup in hand. Maya Torres dancing with a guy whose name she couldn't remember. A Maya Torres in a dress that the anonymous poster deemed too short for someone who claims to be a victim. The post had been shared 400 times before Maya even saw it. This is who wants to destroy Blake Morrison's life. A party girl looking for a payday. The comments were worse than the pictures. Attention whore, she probably begged for it then changed her mind. Innocent until proven guilty, but she's guilty of being a slut. Marcus found her on the bathroom floor, phone clutched in her shaking hands, reading each comment like a form of self-harm. "Stop," he said, taking the phone gently. "Maya, stop. These people don't know you." "Everyone knows me now." Her voice sounded distant, hollow. "Everyone's seen. Everyone thinks. Everyone's an idiot." Marcus sat beside her on the cold tile. "And everyone will forget about this in a week. Some other drama will take over." But they didn't forget. The post was followed by another, then another. Someone found her Facebook from high school. Screenshots of teenage stupidity served up as evidence of her corruption. Someone else claimed to have hooked up with her at a party, described her in terms that made Maya's skin crawl. The university newspaper ran an editorial about due process, about the dangers of rushing to judgment, about how accusations could ruin lives. Blake Morrison's life, they meant. Never Maya's. The preliminary hearing was held on a Thursday morning in a courthouse that smelled like floor polish and institutional despair. Maya wore a navy suit that Marcus had helped her pick out, professional and modest. She'd read somewhere that what victims wore to court mattered, that juries judged you on everything from your hemline to your expression. Blake wore a suit too, expensive and perfectly tailored. He looked younger somehow, vulnerable. His lawyer had probably told him to cry if he could manage it. Savannah sat behind him in the gallery, her hand on his mother's shoulder in a gesture of solidarity. Mrs. Morrison was crying, quiet, dignified tears that caught the light just so. The prosecutor was a woman named Julia Reeves, no relation to the detective. She was young, competent, and clearly exhausted in a way that suggested this wasn't her first case against the Morrison family legal machine. "Ms. Torres," she said during a break, her voice low, "I need to be honest with you. Gerald Vance is good at what he does. He's going to paint you as unreliable. He's going to bring up every drink you've ever had, every relationship, every bad decision. He's going to make the jury think you're either a liar or too drunk to remember what really happened." "I wasn't drunk." "I know, but he'll create reasonable doubt. That's all he needs." Julia paused. "Are you prepared for this? It's going to get ugly." Maya thought about the social media posts, the messages, the brick through her window. It's already ugly. It can get worse. Then let it. But Maya wasn't prepared. Not really. Not for the way Gerald Vance made her sexual history sound like a rap sheet. Not for the way he described her friendship with Blake. They'd shared one class, said hello twice, as if it were an intimate relationship gone sour. Not for the expert witness who testified that traumatic memories were unreliable, that the mind played tricks, that what Maya remembered might not be what actually happened. The judge ruled there was enough evidence to proceed to trial. Barely. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Someone shoved a microphone in Maya's face. "Ms. Torres, do you have any comment on Blake Morrison's statement that this is a case of regret, not assault?" "Ms. Torres, is it true you'd been drinking before the alleged incident?" "Ms. Torres, how do you respond to allegations that you're doing this for attention?" Marcus pulled her away, his arm a shield around her shoulders. But not before Maya saw Savannah, standing at the top of the courthouse steps, her expression unreadable. Their eyes met for a moment. Savannah smiled. It was the smile that would haunt Maya for the rest of her short life. The trial was set for 6 weeks later. Maya spent those weeks in a kind of suspended animation, going through the motions of living while feeling fundamentally dead inside. She went to classes but didn't hear the lectures. She ate but tasted nothing. She slept in fragments, always aware of the locks, the windows, the sounds in the hallway. The social media campaign intensified. Someone started a website dedicated to exposing her, complete with photoshopped images that made her look drunker, sluttier, more culpable. Someone else started a petition to have her expelled from the university for making false accusations. It got 2,000 signatures. Professor Hastings called her in again. This time, he didn't pretend it was about support. The university's position has become untenable, he said. We're receiving complaints from donors, from alumni, from parents who don't want their children attending an institution that harbors someone who would make these kinds of allegations. Harbors? Maya repeated. I'm a student. I was assaulted on campus. Allegedly assaulted, and the publicity around this case is damaging our reputation. He slid a paper across his desk. We'd like you to take a voluntary leave of absence, effective immediately. Once the trial is over, we can discuss your return. Maya didn't touch the paper. And if I refuse, then we'll be forced to pursue other options. Academic integrity violations, code of conduct issues. Oh, we'll find something. You're expelling me for being assaulted. We're asking you to take a break during a difficult time. Maya stood. The room tilted slightly, or maybe that was just her. Blake gets to stay. Blake has also taken a leave of absence. Voluntarily? Hastings didn't answer. Maya took the leave. What choice did she have? The trial began on a Monday in October. The leaves outside the courthouse were turning rust and gold against a sky the color of old bruises. Maya wore the same navy suit. It felt like armor that wouldn't hold. The jury was seated. 7 women, 5 men, their faces carefully neutral. Maya tried not to imagine what they thought of her, tried not to see judgment in every expression. Julia Reeves had told her not to make eye contact, not to seem aggressive or emotional. Just be truthful, she'd said. Felt as if truth mattered in a room designed to twist it. Blake took the stand first, his lawyer's strategy clear. Humanize the defendant before the victim could demonize him. He spoke softly, humbly, about his relationship with Savannah, about his plans for the future, about the misunderstanding that had spiraled so terribly out of control. I thought we were on the same page, he said, and his voice actually broke. Maya and I had been flirting for weeks. That day when I came over to study, I misread the situation. I thought we both wanted. He wiped his eyes. When her brother came in, when I realized my mistake, I was horrified. I tried to apologize, and in the confusion, Maya fell. I never meant to hurt her. I would never hurt anyone. Savannah was crying in the front row. Mrs. Morrison, too. Even some of the jurors looked sympathetic. Gerald Vance stood. Blake, would you say you're a violent person? No, sir, never. Have you ever been accused of violence before these allegations? No, sir. A lie smooth as silk. The prior complaints had been ruled inadmissible. Insufficient evidence, different circumstances. The judge had allowed it. Would you say you respect women? Absolutely. My mother raised me to... On and on it went. Blake Morrison transformed into a golden boy undone by a tragic misunderstanding. When it was Julia's turn to cross-examine, she came out swinging. Mr. Morrison, you said you and Miss Torres had been flirting for weeks. Can you provide any evidence of this? Text messages, emails, witnesses who saw this flirtation? Blake hesitated. It was more subtle. Looks across the classroom. Smiles. Smiles? Well, I see. And on the day in question when you entered Miss Torres's apartment, was she expecting you? We'd discussed studying together. Can you provide evidence of this discussion? It was verbal, in passing. How convenient. Julia's tone was sharp. Mr. Morrison, you claim Miss Torres fell during a confusion when her brother entered. How do you explain the bruising on her arms consistent with restraint? The defensive wounds on her hands? The fact that her door had to be kicked in because you'd locked it from the inside? Gerald Vance objected. Leading the witness, the judge sustained. Julia tried another approach. You locked the door? For privacy. From whom? I don't know. It was just automatic. Automatic to lock yourself in a room with a woman who you now claim didn't want you there? Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. The dance continued back and forth, but Maya could see the jury's faces. They weren't convinced. Blake's tears and Savannah's devotion and his expensive suit had done their work. When Maya took the stand, she felt the weight of the courtroom like a physical thing. Every eye on her, every breath measured. Julia walked her through the events carefully, methodically. Maya described the afternoon, the way Blake had shown up uninvited, the way he'd pushed past her into the apartment, the way he'd locked the door. Tell the jury what happened next, Julia said gently, Maya's hands were shaking. She gripped the sides of the witness box. He started touching me. I told him to stop. I said no multiple times. He didn't listen. What did you do? I tried to push him away. Whoa. I had a textbook in my hands and I tried to use it to create distance. He grabbed my wrist and twisted it. I heard it break. Then what happened? He pushed me against my desk. He had his hands on my throat. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. Maya's voice cracked. Then Marcus came home. He heard me screaming. He kicked down the door. What did Blake do when your brother entered? He ran. He jumped out the window. We're on the ground floor. And he ran. Julia nodded. No further questions. Gerald Vance stood, and Maya watched her assault transform into fiction. Miss Torres, you claim you told Mr. Morrison no multiple times. Yet there's no evidence of a struggle beyond the broken wrist, which could have occurred any number of ways. Why didn't you scream earlier? Why didn't you try to leave? I was scared. He was blocking the door and you were scared, but you didn't scream until your brother arrived home? Convenient timing. Objection! Withdrawn. Vance smiled, thin and sharp. Miss Torres, you testified that you'd never encouraged Mr. Morrison's attention. Yet, we have witnesses who say they saw you laughing with him in class, smiling at him in the hallway. That's called being polite. Or flirting, depending on one's interpretation. He pulled out a photo, one of the ones that had been circulating online. Maya at a party, dancing, laughing. Is this you? Yes. You appear to be having a good time. It was a party. A party where by multiple accounts you were drinking heavily and dancing suggestively with several men. Objection. Relevance. Your Honor, I'm establishing a pattern of behavior that contradicts Miss Torres's claim that she's an innocent victim in this situation. The judge allowed it. The cross-examination continued for 3 hours. By the end, Maya felt dissected, every part of her life laid out and found wanting. Her dating history, her drinking habits, the time she'd been written up for coming home past curfew in her freshman dorm, every tiny transgression presented as evidence of her fundamental unsuitability as a victim. When she finally stepped down, she couldn't meet Julia's eyes. The verdict came back after 2 days of deliberation. Not guilty. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She heard Savannah's cry of relief, saw Blake collapse into his lawyer's arms, watched the Morrison family embrace as if he'd been saved from execution rather than consequences outside the courthouse. Blake gave a statement about forgiveness and moving forward, about how this had been a learning experience for everyone, about how he hoped Maya could find peace. Savannah stood beside him, her hand in his, her smile radiant. The reporters swarmed Maya with different questions now. How did it feel to lose? Did she regret wasting the court's time? Would she apologize to Blake for the damage she'd done to his reputation? Marcus dragged her away before she could do something stupid like answer. The weeks after the verdict blurred together into a gray smear of existence. Maya stopped going to classes. She was still officially on leave anyway. Stopped answering calls from the few friends who hadn't abandoned her. Stopped pretending there was a future worth planning for. The university sent a letter denying her readmission. The photos from the trial, the publicity, it had created an environment incompatible with learning, they said. Perhaps she could reapply in a year or two, once things had settled. Blake was back on campus within a week. Savannah posted a photo of them together, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. The caption, "Through the storm, we endure." #truth wins #moving forward. It got 3,000 likes. Maya started drinking. Not much at first, just enough to quiet the voices in her head, the ones that kept replaying the trial, the verdict, the way the jury had looked at her like she was something that had crawled out from under a rock. Marcus tried to help. He really did. He made her appointments with therapists she didn't keep. He brought her food she didn't eat. He sat with her in the dark and told her it wasn't her fault. That the system had failed her, that she was still worth something. She didn't believe him. On a Tuesday in November, Maya got a message from an unknown number. Just a photo, Blake and Savannah dressed up for some formal event, looking perfect, looking happy, looking like people who hadn't destroyed someone's life and gotten away with it. The caption, "Living our best life. Hope you're doing well." XO. Maya stared at the message for a long time. Then she opened a bottle of sleeping pills. Marcus found her 3 hours later, unconscious on the bathroom floor. The ambulance came with sirens that sounded like screaming. At the hospital, a different doctor, a different room, but the same fluorescent lights humming their mechanical song. Maya woke to the sound and taste of activated charcoal, black and gritty in her throat. "You're lucky," the doctor said. "Your brother got here in time." Lucky. Maya laughed until she cried. The psychiatric hold was mandatory, 72 hours in a ward that smelled like antiseptic and desperation. Her roommate was a girl named Chloe, who'd tried to hang herself after her boyfriend posted revenge porn. They didn't talk much, but sometimes they sat together in the common room, united in their inability to survive men's cruelty. On the second day, Savannah came to visit. Maya almost didn't believe it when the nurse said she had a visitor. Marcus had been there that morning. She wasn't expecting anyone else. Savannah looked different, thinner if that was possible. There was something brittle about her now, like she was held together with wire and will. "I heard what happened," Savannah said. So sitting across from Maya in the visiting room, "I wanted to make sure you were okay." "Did you?" Maya's voice was flat. "I know you probably hate me, but I needed to see you." Savannah twisted her hands in her lap. "The photo, the one that was sent to you, that wasn't from me." "Does it matter?" "It was Blake's idea. He thought it would be funny. A joke," he said. Savannah's voice was barely audible. "I told him it wasn't, that you'd been through enough. We fought about it." Maya felt nothing. It was almost peaceful, the numbness. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm starting to think—" Savannah stopped, started again. "He hit me last week. Blake. We were arguing about something stupid. I don't even remember what. And he just... the way his hand was around my throat before I could process what was happening." The words hung in the air between them. "He apologized after," Savannah continued. "He cried. He said he didn't know what came over him. That the stress from the trial, from everything, it had made him lose control. He promised it would never happen again." "But it will," Maya said. "I know." Savannah's eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I'm still going to marry him. I'm still going to convince myself it was a one-time thing. I'm still going to choose him over myself, over you, over everything, because I'm a coward, Maya. I'm a fucking coward, and I'm sorry." Maya looked at this woman who had destroyed her life to save a monster. She wanted to feel anger, hatred, anything, but there was just the hollow space where her emotions used to be. "You should leave," Maya said. Savannah nodded, standing slowly. "For what it's worth, I believe you now. I believe everything you said. And I'm sorry I didn't believe you before." "Your belief doesn't undo what happened." "I know." Savannah moved toward the door, then paused. "He's going to kill me eventually. Blake. I can feel it. And when he does, I hope someone believes that victim more than I believed you." She left before Maya could respond. They released Maya after the 72 hours with a prescription for antidepressants and a referral to outpatient therapy. Marcus picked her up, his face gray with worry and exhaustion. "I'm sorry," Maya said in the car. "Don't be sorry, just stay, okay? Stay alive." She wanted to promise him she would. The words wouldn't come. The weeks crawled by. Thanksgiving came and went. A dinner Maya couldn't taste. Marcus tried to be cheerful, tried to maintain normalcy, but they both knew it was a performance. In December, it started snowing. Maya watched from her window as the city transformed into something clean and white, temporarily beautiful. On December 15th, Blake and Savannah got engaged. The announcement was everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, the local paper. Morris and Chen wedding to unite two prominent families. There were photos of the ring, enormous and obscene, photos of them kissing beneath mistletoe, photos of their perfect, unblemished future. Maya read the announcement sitting on her bathroom floor, a bottle of vodka in her hand that she didn't remember opening. She thought about Savannah's words. "He's going to kill me eventually." She thought about the other girls, the ones before her, the ones who'd tried and failed to stop him. She thought about the girls who would come after. The bathroom tiles were cold against her legs. Maya could see her reflection in the mirror across from her, hollow-eyed, skeletal, more ghost than girl. Outside, the snow kept falling. Maya stood up. She wasn't sure what she intended to do, only that staying still was unbearable. She moved through the apartment like a sleepwalker, down the stairs, out into the street. The cold hit her like a slap. She wasn't wearing a coat and wasn't wearing shoes. The snow soaked through her socks immediately, but she kept walking. She didn't remember deciding to go to the bridge, didn't remember the walk, the turns, the way her breath clouded in the freezing air. But suddenly she was there, standing at the railing of the Henderson Street Bridge. Oh, looking down at the river below. The water was black and fast-moving, chunks of ice flowing like debris from a disaster. Maya climbed onto the railing. It was easier than she expected, her body moving with a certainty her mind didn't possess. From somewhere distant, she heard shouting. Someone had seen her. Someone was calling 911. But it didn't matter. None of it mattered. She thought about Blake, who would never face consequences. About Savannah, who would marry him anyway. About the system that had called her a liar. About the future that had been taken from her. And then, she didn't think at all. She jumped. The fall was shorter than expected. The water was colder. And then, Maya woke to the scent of coffee and cinnamon rolls, Marcus's favorite Saturday morning combination. The smell was so specific, so achingly familiar, that for a moment she couldn't process it. She was in her old bedroom, not the apartment she'd moved to after the assault, her childhood room with its faded posters and mismatched furniture. Sunlight streamed through the window, warm and golden. She sat up so fast her vision spun. The calendar on her wall said March 2023. March 2023. 2 months before Blake Morrison pushed his way into her apartment. 2 months before her life exploded. Maya's hands flew to her wrist, whole, unmarked, not broken. She touched her throat, smooth, no bruises. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. March 18th, 2023. No, she whispered. No, no, no. The door opened. Marcus poked his head in, grinning. You planning to sleep all day? I made cinnamon rolls? He looked younger, happier. His eyes hadn't yet learned the weight of finding his sister beaten and broken. Marcus, Maya's voice cracked, what day is it? Saturday. You feeling okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. A ghost? She was the ghost. She had jumped from a bridge. She had felt the water close over her head, felt her lungs fill, felt the cold reach into her bones and squeeze the life out. She had died. Hadn't she? Maya couldn't finish the sentence. She stumbled out of bed, past Marcus, into the bathroom. The mirror showed her own face, younger, unmarked by the trauma that hadn't happened yet. Wouldn't happen. Couldn't happen. Maya? Marcus was at the door, concern creeping into his voice. You're scaring me. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. She was dead or insane or both. Weird dream. Must have been some dream. You're shaking. She was. She pressed her hands against the sink, trying to ground herself in the cold porcelain, in the reality of this impossible moment. If this was real, if she had somehow come back, Blake Morrison was out there, walking around, unpunished, preparing to destroy her in exactly 2 months. Unless she stopped him first. Maya spent the day in a daze, moving through conversations with Marcus like an actress who'd forgotten her lines. He kept giving her worried looks, but she couldn't explain. How could she explain that she'd lived 3 years into a future where he'd saved her from an assault, only to watch her destroy herself in the aftermath? How could she describe the taste of river water, the moment of her death? She pulled out her laptop and started searching. Blake Morrison? Still listed as a student at the university. His Facebook showed him at a party 2 nights ago. His arm around Savannah Chen, both of them laughing. The comments were full of heart emojis and congratulations on being such a perfect couple. Maya's hands clenched. In 2 months, he would assault her. In 3 years, he would put his hands around Savannah's throat. And in between, how many others? She searched for the other girls, the ones Detective Reeves had mentioned. Sarah Jennings, who'd filed a complaint in 2021. Emily Rodriguez, 2022. Both complaints withdrawn. Maya found Sarah on LinkedIn. She'd left the university, moved to Portland, worked at a nonprofit now. Her profile picture showed a woman with careful eyes, the kind of careful that came from learning not to trust. Emily was harder to find. No social media presence at all. Well, like she'd scrubbed herself from the internet. Maya sat back, her mind racing. If she reported him now, before he could hurt her, would anyone believe her? She had no evidence, no bruises, nothing but the memory of a future that hadn't happened. But the other girls had evidence. They'd filed reports. They'd withdrawn them under pressure. What if they didn't withdraw this time? Marcus knocked on her door that evening. You want to talk about it? The dream? Maya looked up from her laptop at her brother, who didn't yet know what he would become. Her savior, her anchor, the one who would find her dying on a bathroom floor and again in a frozen river. "If you could stop something terrible from happening," she said slowly, "but no one would believe you about it, would you try anyway?" Marcus settled onto the edge of her bed. "So no, that's pretty philosophical for a Saturday night. We talking about a specific terrible thing?" "Hypothetically. Hypothetically, I'd probably try anyway. Better to fail trying than never try at all." He studied her face. "This about something at school?" "Maybe." "You know I'm here, right? Whatever it is." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Ridiculous. Crying from kindness when she'd survived so much worse. Would survive. Had survived. Tense was complicated when you died and come back. "I know," she managed. After Marcus left, Maya made a decision. She couldn't report Blake for something he hadn't done yet, but she could find the girls he'd already hurt. She could convince them not to drop their charges. She could build a case that would stop him before he got to her, before he got to anyone else. She started with Sarah Jennings. The email was harder to write than Maya expected. How do you reach out to someone whose trauma you only knew about secondhand? Someone who'd been pressured into silence by the same family that would later destroy you? "Dear Sarah, you don't know me, but I'm a student at the same university you attended. I know what happened to you with Blake Morrison. I know you filed a complaint and then withdrew it. I'm reaching out because I think Blake is going to hurt someone else. Soon. And I want to build a case against him, but I need evidence. I need people willing to speak up. I know this is a lot to ask. I know you have every reason to want to move on and forget. But if you're willing to talk, I'd like to listen. Sincerely, Maya Torres." She sent it before she could second-guess herself, then immediately felt sick. What if Sarah thought this was harassment? What if she reported Maya to the police? What if she just didn't respond? Maya sent a similar email to Emily Rodriguez, using the one email address she could find, an old university account. Then she waited. Sarah responded 3 days later. "Maya, I don't know how you found out about Blake, but you're right. He's going to hurt someone else. He won't stop. Men like him don't stop. I can't help you. I'm sorry. The Morrison family made it very clear what would happen if I pursued the complaint. My scholarship was threatened. My father's business received a sudden audit that cost him thousands in legal fees. I got messages, threats, had my car vandalized. I was 19 years old and I just wanted it to stop. Whatever you're planning, be careful. That family has money and power, and they will use both to protect their son. I'm sorry I can't be braver. I hope you can be." Maya read the email 5 times, memorizing the resignation in every word. Sarah couldn't help. Emily probably wouldn't either, if she even saw the message, which meant Maya had to find another way. She started documenting everything. Every interaction she'd had with Blake Morrison, which admittedly were few. They'd shared one class, Introduction to Criminal Justice, where they'd been assigned to the same group project. Maya had been friendly but professional. Blake had been charming, attentive in a way that felt a little too intense but not quite crossing a line. She scrolled through her old messages, looking for anything from that time period. Found one. Blake Morrison. "Hey, so wanted to say thanks for covering my part of the presentation when I had that family emergency. You're a lifesaver." Maya. "No problem. Hope everything's okay." Blake. "All good now. Let me buy you coffee sometime to make up for it." Maya. "Don't worry about it really." And that had been it. She'd declined, moved on, forgotten about it. But Blake hadn't forgotten. In 2 months, he would show up at her apartment claiming they'd planned to study together, would claim they'd been flirting, that she'd encouraged his attention. And because Maya had been friendly, because she'd smiled and helped with the presentation and been a normal, polite human being, half the jury would believe him. Maya screenshot the messages, saved them in a folder labeled Evidence. Then she started going through her calendar, marking every interaction, or every class they'd shared, building a timeline that proved she'd never encouraged him. It felt futile. How do you prove a negative? How do you prove you didn't flirt, didn't invite, didn't want it? But she had to try. On March 28th, Maya saw Blake and Savannah in the campus coffee shop. They were tucked into a corner booth, Savannah's laptop open between them, working on something together. Blake said something that made her laugh, then leaned across the table to kiss her cheek. They looked happy, normal, like any young couple balancing school and romance and dreams of the future. Maya watched from across the room, remembering Savannah's hollow eyes in the hospital visiting room. He's going to kill me eventually. She pulled out her phone and started recording. Not sure what she was documenting, but feeling compelled to capture this moment. The before. The innocence that was really ignorance. Savannah looked up, caught Maya watching. She smiled, gave a little wave. Maya waved back, her throat tight. In 7 weeks, this woman would come to the hospital with white roses and accusations. Would beg Maya to drop charges against the man who was currently making her laugh. Would choose him over justice, over safety, over her own survival. Unless Maya could change it? But how? The idea came to her at 3 a.m., the way most desperate plans did. If she couldn't build a case against Blake before he assaulted her, and she couldn't convince the previous victims to come forward, maybe she could prevent the assault entirely. Not by reporting him. She had no grounds yet. But by making sure he was never alone with her. By changing the circumstances that would lead to that afternoon in May. She pulled up her calendar. May 20th, 2023. The day it happened. She'd been home alone, studying for finals. Marcus had been at work. Blake had shown up uninvited. So Maya needed to make sure she wasn't alone that day. Simple. Except it wasn't simple, because preventing one assault wouldn't stop Blake from finding other victims. It would just delay the inevitable. Unless the inevitable could be avoided entirely. Maya pulled up Blake's social media, scrolling through months of posts, parties, football games, pictures with Savannah, and interspersed throughout. Comments from other girls, likes, tags, a pattern of attention-seeking, of charm deployed like a weapon. She recognized some of the names from campus, started making a list. If she couldn't stop Blake alone, maybe she didn't have to be alone. The next day, Maya started talking to other women. Not about Blake specifically. Not yet. Just conversations, building connections, paying attention to the casual mentions of uncomfortable situations, weird vibes, guys who didn't take no for an answer. A girl named Jessica mentioned a party where she'd woken up with her clothes disheveled and no memory of the night. Blake Morrison was there, she said, frowning. I remember he was being super helpful, getting me water, making sure I was okay, but then nothing. I can't remember anything after midnight. Maya's blood went cold. Did you report it? Report what? That I drank too much and made bad decisions? Jessica laughed bitterly. Besides, Blake's a good guy. He's always helping people out at parties. Calling Ubers, getting water. Savannah's lucky to have him. A good guy? The same words that would later be used to discredit Maya's accusations. Would you be willing to talk to other girls who've had similar experiences? Maya asked carefully. Maybe see if there's a pattern? Jessica looked at her strangely. Why? Do you know something? I'm just trying to understand. That's all? It was a lie, but it was a lie that might save someone's life. By mid-April, Maya had connected with 6 women who'd had uncomfortable experiences with Blake Morrison. None of them thought they'd been assaulted. He was too careful for that, too good at maintaining plausible deniability. But they'd all felt uneasy around him, had all noticed the way he'd zeroed in on the drunkest girl at a party, offered to help, positioned himself as a white knight. We should do something, Jessica said at their 3rd meeting in a study room in the library. If he's really, we can't just let him keep doing this. Do what? Another girl, Amber, asked. We don't have proof of anything, just bad vibes. Bad vibes that 6 different women have independently experienced, Maya pointed out. It won't matter. You know it won't. This from Lee, who'd woken up in Blake's dorm room once with no memory of how she got there. His family donates to this school. They have buildings named after them. You think anyone's going to believe us over him? The conversation was depressingly familiar. It was the same wall Maya had hit in her first life. The same institutional protection that made predators untouchable. But she also had something none of these women had. She knew exactly what Blake was capable of. She'd lived it. Died from it. What if we didn't try to convince the university? Maya said slowly. What if we convinced Savannah? The room went quiet. You want to tell his girlfriend that he's a predator? Jessica looked skeptical. She'll never believe us. Maybe not now, but if we plant seeds, make her aware, make her pay attention. Maya trailed off. She was thinking about Savannah in the hospital, her admission that she'd chosen blindness. She loves him, but everyone has limits. This feels like a terrible idea, Amber said. You have a better one? No one did. The approach to Savannah had to be subtle. They couldn't just confront her with accusations. Maya had tried that in her first life, and it had only made Savannah defensive. Instead, they needed to make her question, to wonder, to see what she'd been trained not to see. It started small. Jessica accidentally running into Savannah at the gym, mentioning in passing that Blake had been super helpful at a party where Jessica had gotten sick. He's such a good guy, making sure I got home safe. I wish I could remember more of that night, though. It's so weird how it's just blank. Then Lee, sitting near Savannah in the library, taking a phone call that was just loud enough to overhear, "No, I'm telling you, I don't remember going to his room. I remember the party and then I woke up there. Yeah, Blake Morrison, no, he said nothing happened, that he just let me sleep it off." Carefully planted seeds that might bloom into doubt. Maya watched Savannah for signs that it was working. She saw her frown when Blake came back from the bathroom at a restaurant, saw her glance at her drink like she was wondering something she didn't want to name. But Savannah was loyal. Savannah was committed. Savannah had invested 3 years in the idea that Blake Morrison was her future, and cognitive dissonance was a powerful drug. It might not be enough. May 20th approached like an execution date. Maya had circled it on her calendar in red, had counted down the days with increasing dread. She'd changed things. She'd connected with women Blake had hurt. She'd tried to warn Savannah. But what if it wasn't enough? What if fate was a closed loop and the assault happened anyway, just differently? Marcus noticed her anxiety. "You've been weird lately." More than usual. "Just stressed about finals." "You sure that's all it is?" Maya looked at her brother, thought about the future where he'd kick down her door and find her broken. If something bad happened to someone you loved, and you could have prevented it, would you want to know? Even if knowing made you responsible? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I think I'd rather know. Rather have the chance to help than find out too late," Maya nodded. "I need you to do something for me." "Okay. On May 20th, I need you to come home early from work, by 2 p.m. at the latest, and I need you to check on me even if I say I'm fine." "Why? What's happening May 20th? "Maybe nothing. But if something does happen, I need you there." Marcus studied her face. "You're scaring me, Maya." "I'm scared too," she admitted. "But I'm also trying to be smart this time." This time, Maya didn't answer. May 20th dawned gray and humid, the air thick with the promise of storms. Maya woke with her heart already racing, the phantom taste of copper in her mouth. She'd spent the night before with Amber and Jessica, all of them crowded into Jessica's apartment, mapping out contingency plans. If Blake showed up at Maya's place, Jessica would text her every 15 minutes. If Maya didn't respond, they'd call the police. "This feels insane," Amber had said. "We're planning for an assault that hasn't happened based on, what, your bad feeling?" "Trust me," Maya had said, and meant it literally. "Please." Now sitting in her apartment at 1:30 p.m., Maya watched her phone. No messages from Blake? No sign he was coming? Maybe she'd changed enough. Maybe the conversation with Savannah had worked, had made him more careful. Or maybe he was just late. At 1:47, there was a knock on the door. Maya's heart stopped. She looked at her phone. She'd set up an automatic recording app that would capture audio if activated. Her finger hovered over it. Another knock. "Maya? It's me." Blake's voice. Maya's hands started shaking. She activated the recording, then moved to the door, her phone in her pocket. Through the peephole, she could see him, smiling, casual, holding a textbook, looking exactly like he had in her memories. "Hey," he said when she opened the door. Just a crack, the chain still engaged. "I was in the neighborhood and thought we could study for the criminal justice final. You always take the best notes." "I'm busy right now." Maya's voice was steady, stronger than she felt. Come on, it'll be quick. I'm really struggling with the case law section." He pushed against the door lightly. Testing. "I said I'm busy." Maya pulled out her phone, held it up. "And I'm recording this conversation." Blake's expression flickered. Just for a second, the mask slipping to show something cold and calculating underneath. Then the smile was back, smooth as ever. "Recording? Why would you need to record us studying?" "Because you're not here to study, Blake. We've barely spoken all semester. You've never asked for help with notes before, and you're lying about being in the neighborhood. You live on the other side of campus." Another flicker. "I don't know what you think this is. I think you should leave now." "Maya, you're being paranoid. I'm just trying to—" The sound of footsteps in the hallway made them both turn. Marcus appeared, his face tight with concern. "Everything okay here?" He was early. He'd actually come early. Blake stepped back from the door, hands up in a gesture of innocence. Yeah, man, everything's fine. Just offering to study with your sister. Didn't realize it was a big deal. It's not a big deal, Marcus said evenly, because you're leaving. Sure. Blake backed away, but not before giving Maya a look that promised that this wasn't over. See you around, Maya. After he left, Maya closed the door and slid down it to sit on the floor, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. You want to tell me what that was about? Marcus crouched beside her. I just prevented my own assault, Maya said, and started laughing, a high, slightly hysterical sound. I actually prevented it. Marcus stared at her. What? So Maya told him. So not everything. Not the death, not the bridge, not the impossible truth of her return. But enough. About the other girls, about Blake's pattern, about knowing somehow that today was when he would try. And you didn't tell the police because I have no proof. Just certainty. Maya looked up at her brother. You believe me? I believe that Blake Morrison is a piece of shit who just tried to push his way into your apartment and only stopped when he saw me. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling Detective Reeves. Wait, you know Reeves? He's dating my boss's sister? Why? Maya laughed again. Because of course. Of course Marcus already knew the detective who would later handle her case. The universe was nothing if not economical with its coincidences. Make the call, she said. The Detective Reeves took Maya's statement that evening. She told him about the other girls, about the pattern, about Blake's appearance at her door with a flimsy excuse. It's not much, Reeves admitted. Showing up at someone's door isn't a crime, but combined with these other incidents, if the other young women are willing to talk, they are, Maya said. Or they will be. They're scared, but they're angry too. Reeves nodded slowly. I'll talk to them. See if we can build something. But Miss Torres, I need you to be careful. If Morrison is what you say he is, and he realizes you're organizing against him, I know. He'll escalate? Exactly. What Reeves didn't know, what Maya couldn't tell him, was that escalation was exactly what she was counting on. Because Blake Morrison was careful. He chose vulnerable targets, isolated moments, situations where his word would always trump theirs. But if he felt cornered, if he felt threatened, he would make a mistake, and Maya would be ready. Blake made his mistake 6 days later. Maya heard about it from Jessica, who heard about it from Lee, who was in the ER with Savannah Chen. He choked her, Jessica said over the phone, her voice shaking. At some party off campus, people saw them arguing, saw her crying, but everyone just thought it was couple drama. Then someone heard her screaming from one of the bedrooms. Maya was already grabbing her keys. Which hospital? St. Catherine S. But Maya, I don't think she wants to see you. I don't care. I'm going. The hospital smelled the same as it had, would have, in her first life. Fluorescent lights humming, vinyl chairs squeaking, the particular quality of recycled tragedy in the air. Lee met her in the waiting room. She won't press charges. The police are here. They've been talking to her for an hour, and she keeps saying it was an accident. Where is she? Room 3B. But seriously, Maya, she's not... Maya didn't wait to hear the rest. She pushed into room 3B and found Savannah sitting on the hospital bed, a bruise blooming across her throat in the perfect shape of a handprint. Their eyes met. You knew, Savannah said. Her voice was hoarse, broken. When you and those other girls started talking to me, asking weird questions, making sure I heard stories about Blake, you were trying to warn me. Maya closed the door behind her. Yes. Why didn't you just tell me? Would you have believed me? Savannah laughed, a sound like shattering glass. No. I wouldn't have. I didn't want to see it. She touched her throat gently. But I see it now. Good. Then press charges. I can't. Savannah, you don't understand. My father already called. The Morrison family already called. If I press charges, if I make this public, my family will cut me off. My father's business will suffer. My mother will... She stopped, tears streaming down her face. I can't do that to them. Maya moved closer, sat on the edge of the bed. And what happens next time? Because there will be a next time, for you or for someone else. Maybe there won't be. Maybe this scared him. Maybe it didn't scare him when he hurt Sarah Jennings, or Emily Rodriguez, or the girl in high school. Maya took Savannah's hand. It didn't scare him when he tried to assault me last week. Savannah's head snapped up. What? So Maya told her about Blake showing up at her apartment, about the recording she'd made, about Marcus arriving just in time. "That's why you knew," Savannah whispered. "That's why you were trying to warn me. He went after you first. He went after a lot of people first. You're just the first one he couldn't hide." Savannah was quiet for a long time. "The police detective said 6 other women have come forward. That they're building a case even without me?" "Reeves. He's good. He'll do everything he can." Maya squeezed Savannah's hand. "But it would be stronger with you. You're the one people know about. The one Blake can't discredit as a jealous ex or a gold digger or a liar." "He'll still try." "Of course he will. His family will destroy you. Probably me too. Everyone who speaks up." Maya's voice hardened. "But at least we'll have spoken." Savannah looked down at their joined hands. "In another life," she said slowly, "if this had played out differently, if Blake had hurt you instead of me, would I have believed you?" It was such a specific question, phrased in such a particular way that Maya wondered if somehow Savannah could feel it, the echo of that other timeline, the ghost of who they'd been. "No," Maya said honestly, "you wouldn't have. You would have chosen him, protected him, and it would have destroyed us both. But not this time? Not this time?" Savannah nodded once, then called the detective back into the room. "I want to press charges," she said, her voice stronger now. "I want to tell you everything." Detective Reeves pulled out his notebook, and Maya squeezed Savannah's hand one more time before stepping out to give them privacy. In the hallway, Lee and Jessica were waiting. "Did she?" Lee asked. "She's pressing charges." They exhaled in unison, relief and terror mixed together. "The Morrison family is going to come for all of us," Amber said. She'd arrived at some point, looking pale but determined. "Probably," Maya agreed. "So what do we do?" Maya thought about the first time, about how isolated she'd been, how easy it had been for the Morrisons to pick her apart. But this time was different. This time, she had allies, had evidence, had a victim the public would sympathize with, Blake's own girlfriend, the woman who should have been safe with him. "We fight," Maya said. "Together." The media circus started within hours. Blake Morrison, golden boy from a prominent family, arrested for assaulting his fiancée. The story had everything: money, violence, betrayal, privilege. The Morrison family responded with their usual playbook: Gerald Vance on retainer, statements about Blake's character, insinuations that Savannah was unstable, attention-seeking. But this time, the playbook hit resistance. Sarah Jennings called Maya 3 days after Blake's arrest. "I saw the news about Savannah, and I've been thinking. You asked if I'd be willing to talk about what Blake did to me. You don't have to. I know, but maybe I want to." Sarah's voice shook slightly. "Maybe I'm tired of being scared." Emily Rodriguez called next. Then 2 more women Maya had never even contacted who'd seen the news and recognized their own stories in Savannah's bruises. Detective Reeves worked tirelessly, building a case that grew stronger by the day. The prosecution was enthusiastic in a way they never had been in Maya's first life. This wasn't a he said, she said about a misunderstanding. This was assault with witnesses, with photographs, with a pattern too clear to deny. Blake's bail was set at $500,000. His father paid it within an hour. The backlash was immediate and vicious. The Morrison family's PR machine went into overdrive, painting Savannah as a scorned woman, Blake as a victim of a gold digger's machinations. The social media campaign was brutal. Photos of Savannah at parties, claims she'd been cheating, suggestions she'd orchestrated the whole thing for attention. But this time, the women pushed back. Maya, Jessica, Lee, Amber. They all posted their stories. Not graphic details, but enough. Enough to show a pattern, enough to make people question. Professor Hastings called Maya into his office again. Different timing, same script. "Ms. Torres, the university is receiving pressure regarding your involvement in the Morrison case." "My involvement in organizing victims to come forward, you mean?" "Your involvement in what some are calling a coordinated attack on a student's reputation." Hastings folded his hands on his desk. "The Morrison family has made it clear that they view this as harassment." "And what does the university view it as?" "We're concerned about the situation, about the way this reflects on our institution." Maya stood. "Then be concerned about the fact that you let a serial predator operate on your campus for years. Be concerned that 3 women reported him, and you did nothing. Be concerned that you're more worried about donor money than student safety. That's not fair." None of this is fair, Professor, but at least this time it's not just me being destroyed alone. She left before he could respond. The preliminary hearing was different this time. More evidence, more witnesses, more certainty. Gerald Vance tried his usual tactics, but they fell flat against the weight of 7 women's testimonies, all describing the same pattern of behavior. The judge ruled that Blake Morrison would stand trial for assault, attempted sexual assault, and a host of other charges. Blake's face, when the decision was read, showed no emotion, but his eyes found Maya in the courtroom, and in them, she saw rage. Good, she thought. Let him be angry. Angry people made mistakes. The trial date was set for September. Maya spent the summer studying, trying to reclaim some normalcy while living in the eye of a hurricane. Savannah had moved back in with her mother after her father's business survived the initial fallout. Turned out the Morrisons' influence wasn't as absolute as they'd believed. She and Maya met for coffee occasionally, an unlikely friendship forged in shared trauma. "I keep thinking about what you said," Savannah told her in July, sitting in a cafe far from campus. About another life. It was such a strange thing to say. Maya stirred her coffee, watching the cream swirl. Was it? It was specific, like you'd actually seen it. Savannah leaned forward. "Sometimes I have these dreams, about a different version of events, where Blake hurt you instead of me, where I didn't believe you, where I chose him over everything, over everyone. And it destroyed us both." Maya's hand stilled. Dreams? Vivid ones, so vivid they feel like memories. Savannah's eyes searched Maya's face. "Do you ever feel like you've lived something before?" The question hung between them, weighted with implications Maya wasn't ready to unpack. "Sometimes," Maya said carefully, "sometimes I think we all get second chances. If we're lucky. And if we're not, then we make the most of the first one." Savannah nodded slowly, seeming to accept this non-answer, but Maya could see her still wondering, still reaching for something just beyond her grasp. Let her wonder. Some truths were too impossible to speak aloud. The trial began on September 12th, under a sky heavy with late summer storms. Maya sat in the gallery with the other women, a united front against the Morrison family's money and influence. The prosecution was stronger this time. Julia Reeves, who'd been so overwhelmed in Maya's first life, was fierce and focused, presenting evidence with surgical precision. Blake took the stand in his own defense, performing the same contrition he'd shown before. But this time, there were 7 women's stories to contradict him. 7 patterns of behavior he couldn't explain away. Gerald Vance did his best, painted the women as conspirators, suggested they were coordinating their stories for attention or money, but the jury wasn't buying it. When Savannah took the stand, the courtroom went silent. She described the relationship, the gradual escalation, the moment when charm became control became violence. "I loved him," she said, her voice clear despite the tears. "Well, I thought love meant forgiveness, meant understanding. But I understand now that real love doesn't leave bruises. Real love doesn't make you afraid." Blake's lawyer tried to discredit her. Failed. The verdict came back after 4 days of deliberation. Guilty, on all counts. Blake Morrison was sentenced to 12 years. With parole, he might serve 8. It wasn't enough, it would never be enough, but it was more than the nothing he'd received in Maya's first life. Outside the courthouse, Savannah and Maya stood together facing the press. "We want other women to know they're not alone," Savannah said into the microphones. "That speaking up is hard, and it might cost you, but silence costs more." Maya added, "The system isn't perfect. It's designed to protect people like Blake Morrison. But if we fight together, if we refuse to be silenced, we can make it better." The questions came rapid fire. How did they feel? Were they satisfied with the sentence? What message did this send? Maya tuned them out, watching instead as Blake was led away in handcuffs. He looked at her one last time, and she expected to see hatred. Instead, she saw something like understanding. Like he knew that she'd known all along, that she'd been 10 steps ahead from the start. Let him wonder, too. 2 years later, Maya graduated with honors from the university's criminal justice program. She'd gotten a new internship, this one with a nonprofit focused on supporting assault survivors. Marcus stood in the crowd whistling too loudly, embarrassing her in the way only big brothers could. Savannah graduated too, from a different school. She'd transferred after the trial. He started fresh somewhere her name wasn't synonymous with tragedy. They still texted regularly, occasionally met up for coffee and conversation that had grown easier with time. The other women had moved on too. Sarah was getting a master's degree, Emily was married, Jessica was in law school, planning to specialize in victims' rights. Professor Hastings had quietly retired after an investigation into how the university had handled prior complaints against Blake. The Criminal Justice Department had new leadership, new policies, new awareness. Things changed, slowly, imperfectly, but they changed. Maya still thought about the bridge sometimes, about the river and the cold and the moment when she'd decided living wasn't worth the pain. She thought about the impossible gift of a second chance. About the timeline where she'd suffered alone and Blake had gone free. She didn't know why she'd been sent back. Didn't know if it was real or an elaborate hallucination produced by a drowning brain. Didn't know if somewhere there was another version of her who jumped and never surfaced. But she knew this. She'd used her second chance. She'd saved herself and Savannah and all the other women who might have come after. She'd turned her trauma into action, her death into life. On the morning of her graduation, Maya woke to the smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls. Marcus had snuck into her apartment to make breakfast, the same way he had 2 years ago on the morning that had started her second life. "You planning to sleep all day?" he called from the kitchen. Maya smiled, swinging her legs out of bed. Her wrist was whole, unmarked, though never broken. Her throat bore no bruises. She'd carry other scars, the invisible kind, but she'd earned them in battle, not in defeat. "Coming," she called back. In the kitchen, Marcus had set the table like it was a celebration. Because it was. Not just of graduation, but of survival. Of speaking up. Of refusing to be silent. "Speech," Marcus demanded, handing her a cinnamon roll. "I don't have a speech." "Bullshit. You always have a speech." Maya took a bite, savoring the sweetness, the warmth, the simple pleasure of being alive to taste it. "Okay, here's my speech. Thank you for believing me, even when it didn't make sense, even when I couldn't explain. Thank you for showing up." Marcus raised his coffee cup. "Always." They ate breakfast in comfortable silence, the morning sun streaming through the windows, turning everything golden. Later at the ceremony, when they called Maya Torres's name and she walked across that stage, she thought about all the women who'd walked with her. The ones who'd spoken up, the ones who'd been too scared, the ones who'd tried and failed and tried again. She thought about Savannah, who'd chosen courage over comfort. She thought about Sarah and Emily and Jessica and all the others who'd found their voices. And she thought about the girl she'd been, both versions of her, who'd learned that surviving wasn't just about living, but about making your life mean something. The diploma felt light in her hands, almost weightless, but the future it represented felt solid, real, earned. Maya smiled, not for the cameras, not for the crowd, but for herself. For the girl who jumped off a bridge and somehow impossibly climbed back up. For the woman she'd become. For the second chance she'd refused to waste. The smell of cinnamon rolls would always mean new beginnings. The taste of coffee would always mean morning, and morning would always mean possibility. The sound of her brother's voice would always mean safety. These were the small, perfect things Maya had learned to notice. The sensory details that grounded her in the present reminded her that this life, this second, impossible, precious life, was real. In the weeks after graduation, Maya would start her job at the nonprofit. She would help other survivors navigate the legal system, offer the support she'd once needed. She would watch some cases succeed and others fail, would learn that justice was messy and imperfect and still worth fighting for. Savannah would visit sometimes, and they would talk about everything and nothing, dancing around the question neither could quite ask. Did we really get a second chance? Or did we just choose differently this time? It didn't matter. Not really. What mattered was that Blake Morrison was in prison, that 7 women had found their voices, that the next potential victim had been saved because someone had finally said, enough. What mattered was that Maya woke up every morning and chose to keep waking up. On a Tuesday in October, exactly 3 years after the day she'd jumped from the Henderson Street Bridge, Maya stood on that same bridge. Not to jump this time, but to remember. She looked down at the water, black and fast-moving, and thought about the girl who'd been broken by the system, by a predator, by the weight of being alone. Then she thought about the woman she'd become, scarred but strong, damaged but not destroyed, still fighting even when it was hard. "Thank you," she whispered to the river, to the universe, to whatever force had given her a second chance. The wind picked up, cold and sharp, and Maya pulled her jacket tighter. Then she turned away from the railing and walked back toward the city, toward her life, toward all the mornings that still waited to unfold. Behind her, the river kept flowing, but Maya was done drowning. She was too busy learning how to fly